I am joined by Dame Ellen MacArthur and Christiana Figueres. So, Dame Ellen MacArthur, you're the fastest solo sailor to sail around the world. That's remarkable. And Christiana Figueres, former executive secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Great to have you. And Dame Ellen, I'd like to start with you because the UN Environment Chief said on Sunday that she was beginning to start to see convergence on the world's first plastics treaty that's being negotiated. What would this treaty actually do for plastics pollution?
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to harmonise global regulation so that businesses and us as the users of plastics can have a plastic system that works. Currently only 2% of 78 million tonnes of plastic is recycled into the same quality material from a study that we did 8 years ago, and this is an opportunity to actually set some global rules that work for business and society. It's a big moment.
Remind us why this is so important, Christiana. What is at stake here?
Well, actually, Ellen would be in a better position to say this, but I think what we are understanding is that all global environmental issues are, number one, interrelated, and secondly, that it is absolutely critical to both have a learning phase in which governments and industry can learn how to do things differently, how to produce different technologies, how to change behavior, but it comes to a point where we can no longer depend on subsidies, on incentives, and we actually have to have mandates. And that is what the Plastics Treaty would do. It would actually have a global mandate, very similar to the global mandate that we have from the Paris Agreement on decarbonization of the global economy.
Is there political will behind these types of mandates?
Yes, I think there is, because there is a growing intolerance about not stepping up to our responsibility, and also a growing understanding of the costs that we're all paying personally, individually, and how Ellen can talk to the individual cost of plastics, but also to the global systemic cost.
It's also not just political will. I think what's interesting with the work around the Global Plastics Treaty is there is a coalition of businesses, 240 businesses from around the world, who want global rules to harmonise regulations so that they can all play on a level playing field. This is not just about government saying we need X, it's about business saying we want this too. And that's, I think, why the Global Plastics Treaty has advanced so quickly in the last 8 years from a new topic to a INC5, the final stage of negotiations this November in Korea.
Fastest moving treaty.
So let's talk more about climate action on a whole. Are you finding a willingness to discuss, as we're, of course, dominating the agenda here are global conflicts. I mean, is there a willingness to discuss climate change and the impact it has?
There is. And the huge contribution of the Plastics Treaty, of course, is that it is looking at global pollution that is very visible, Sumi. That has been one of the frustrations of the Climate Convention, is that you can't see CO2 molecules, whereas with plastics, we're all surrounded by plastic all the time. So it's very visible. You can really make it your own issue. The fact that it humanizes, it personalizes global pollution is incredibly helpful and is helping to raise awareness and raise political, social, financial, and corporate willingness to do something about it.
And yet we're also seeing, these global records being broken, the hottest summers, flooding, climate disasters, extreme weather disasters. Do you feel like there is the sense of urgency that is needed behind climate action?
I've felt a sense of urgency for many years, but we're not doing enough. And I think Christiana's point about the interrelatedness is really important here. On the current trajectory with plastics, by 2050, plastics are 15% of emissions. 15%. It's a massive amount. These conversations, when we talk about climate, we're not just talking about an energy transition. That's 55% of the shift that we need to make to stay on the 1.5 degrees. But 45% of that is how we make and use things, including food. That's the plastic space. That's automotive. That's manufacturing. There's a massive potential in that space, and I think that's a conversation we need more of in spaces such as this week.
So if we talk about political willingness, the next climate conference will be just a few days after the U.S. presidential election. Christiana, what's your sense? How much is that weighing on the climate conference itself, and perhaps optimism about what the U.S., the world's biggest emitters, will be able and willing to do?
Well, let's remember that it's not just the climate, right? This year we have biodiversity coming up in September. We have then climate change COP in November. We then have the desertification and the plastics treaty. So this year there is a convergence of most of the global environmental issues, which is a good thing because it is really focusing attention on the need to speed up in both scale and speed on the progress of all of these, but also on the evident interconnection among these. Yes, the U.S. will be in election, and thank heavens in democratic countries we will always have these political moments. That does not detract from the long-term chronic, those acute political moments do not detract from the chronic political need to continue to progress on these issues.
Christiana, Dame Ellen, thank you so much for joining us.